Welcome to Behind the Lens. In the last two episodes, we had a cameraman and then we had a director. And today we have the third pillar of filmmaking, and that is the sound. Sound recordist K.S. Shivdas. Shivdas passed out from FTI and has worked in several feature films, worked in television shows, documentaries, all kind of work. Welcome, Shivdas.
Yeah. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
All good, all good.
So Shivdas,
Uh,
which year did you pass out from FTI?
See, I passed out in the year 1981. And yeah, that's the year.
1981. Okay.
Yeah.
So my first question to you is, how did you decide to become a sound recordist? Why not cameraman? Why not director? Why not editor? Why sound?
See, the reason for that was, yeah, basically, I was interested in films anyway, and I somehow wanted to get into films. So the reason for choosing sound recording as the profession in the field of filmmaking was mainly because I had a background in science and I was interested in electronics and all. So I thought it would be better if I pursue, this aspect of the filmmaking, the sound recording aspect of the filmmaking. I will be inside the film field also. At the same time, I can also enjoy. So that was one of the reasons. Yes, nothing very specific otherwise.
How important is sound in films or documentaries?
Sound is actually very important. It's as important as the visuals. What really happens is that you will know the difference only if you take out one from the other. So if you take the visuals from sound, it's like you could just hear something. There's just the information. You don't know what is happening and where it is happening. You cannot actually identify where the incident is happening. So you have to have a marriage of these two things together. So the moment the sound is taken out of your picture, then the whole, see, it's like the picture is the soul of the body, and sound is basically the information and emotion and things like that. If that is taken out, if you just watch the picture, you can't really have the feel of the place you are in and things like that. So sound plays an
Yeah,
equally important part.
absolutely. That's why it's called
Yeah.
audiovisual.
That's why it is. Yeah, you're right.
Now tell me a bit about the early days of sound. Earlier we had bulky equipments,
Yeah,
like Nagra,
right.
for example. I remember everyone using Nagra, tapes,
Exactly.
and now we have moved into more digital phase. Well,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about the early sound, how Nagra worked, how optical tracks worked, how difficult was it?
See, working on Nagra was like, that was a kind of separate kind of feeling altogether. The only problem was that because of probably because of its size and things like that, it is a bit sort of cumbersome to more than the size of the equipment itself. It was the magnetic tapes that were used for the shoots and all that. So what used to happen is that each production you have to have n number of magnetic tapes had to be used, and logging them and keeping them and maintaining them, all that was like it's too cumbersome. All manually you have to collect all the tapes and keep them and procure them and identify them and mark them, log them properly and all that. That was it's kind of quite cumbersome. Whereas the digital format is that you don't really have to do all that. Okay, you do 10 takes. You know that probably the eighth take is okay, and probably your last take is also okay. You just mark them, and it's there already. You don't have to, sort of keep it. It comes in a small thing. Either what of thing. And the other advantage is that, the digital format is that the dynamic ratio of the magnetic recording and the digital format is a far, far superior in digital format. So your the entire body, this thing is enhanced, and the noise aspect of the thing is also very much reduced.
So what you're saying is, you're saying digital is much, much better than the tape technology.
Yeah, definitely. There is no doubt about it. The tape technology, the main problem was that, each time when you transfer from one medium to the other, each time you do a transfer, you used to lose a certain amount of this thing. So you have to either compensate for that, or by the time it reaches the final optical transfer, there are so many layers of what you call losses that are happening in between. Whereas in the digital format, there is absolutely no loss happening at all.
I mean, even in film, in camera also we had this problem, bulky cameras, bulky magazines, film stock being very expensive. And now it's all come to smaller cameras, digital technology.
True.
So there is still a debate in cinematography whether film was better, or is the digital technology, is it equivalent to film? There is still a little bit of debate on this, whether digital technology is as good as film technology. But I think eventually it is all accepted now because of the being easy to shoot, easy to, like you said, you can have as many takes as you want. And slowly, I think digital technology has also improved over the years at a very fast rate. It's improved, and it's much better quality now.
That's good. That's true. Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, when I came into filmmaking, one of the things which actually I was a bit surprised, about dubbing. I wondered, how dubbing is done, because we are shooting an actor on the sets with all his emotion, with all his intensity, with all his the force, and then he comes back after a month and does this dubbing. So that used to always surprise me as to why is dubbing done, how can dubbing be as close to real? So why, whereas I found in Hollywood films, dubbing was not there from the early days, whereas we followed it very, very rigorously. Only I think recently it has changed a bit. So why was this dubbing technology very, very popular in Bollywood films or any films?
See, the main reason for that was that, basically the locations. The locations are not friendly at all, not audio friendly at all. The moment you walk out of your house, you know that what is happening. The streets are so noisy, and the traffic is the main villain. And if you hear any kind of a traffic, it's absolutely, you cannot. And what is when you think of a sync recording, what you actually mean is that the main aspect is to get the dialogues properly, and properly in the sense it has to have the right kind of tonal qualities and everything, and with extremely minimum possible background noise behind it, so that you could probably later on you could clean it up and things like that. But that is not really possible here in Indian conditions, because the Indian cities, Indian places are so noisy and all that. So when you think of going for a sync shoot, basically the first and primary thing is that the aspect of your imagination should be whether to go about it or not, whether to attempt it or not. So see, for that you have to first identify the kind of locations. You should know that. I'm not saying that you have to have a perfect silent kind of areas like studios. Then there's no point, because it doesn't serve the purpose. Then again you're going back to the same kind of studios, the olden days. So that shouldn't happen also. So what is the other solution for that thing? So what we finally came across at that time was that instead of attempting, what you're saying is absolutely right. Most of these things cannot be all these actors, emotional things and everything, the kind of performance and all that, which he is going to, in the case of dubbing, he is going to, he or she is going to come back after months and perform the same thing. So it's very difficult to probably simulate the same kind of a thing. It is absolutely difficult. And most of the case, 95% of the time, it is very difficult to recreate that.
I've seen recently a lot of sync sound has come. A lot of films are being shot in sync sound. So how has
Yeah.
that change come in Indian films? Is it because of technology becoming better, or what is it? How come more films are
It is,
shot in sync?
yeah, it's partly because of that, because of the technology improvement, but that is not the only criterion. The main thing is that, see, what is really happening is that, the earlier days, one never used to have, the sound never used to have the same kind of importance, which is supposed to be. Now things have really started improving, and people started giving more importance to, or kind of equal importance to sound also. So and with also the technology improvement, what has been happening is that, you have multiple microphone and all kinds of equipment, multiple microphones, which was not the case in the olden days. What we used to have limited number of microphones and things like that. So to achieve all that was not very easy then. Then not only that thing, people also started realize, because of the importance of the sound and all that, it started, sort of, becoming aware, more and more aware of, how the location should be, sort of the selection of locations.
You did
Yeah.
a few films, Dhanna and Gattu recently.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that. How did you?
See, when I was happening, much before, before the recent boom of sync recording and all that, the word sync started coming in, probably optic towards probably the post 2000 and all. And this film was done in the year 1996. And but the one plus point was that we decided to do everything in sync.
And it was done on 16 mm.
It was actually, that film was done on 16 mm, and 16 doing it on 16 mm had its own bad effects on the sound part of it, because the sound negative, the processing of the sound negative of the 16 mm was not standardized in India at all, unlike the 35 mm. So that was one major problem. As long as you are working on the magnetic track, you are all right. But the moment you go from magnetic to final optical track, your sound is completely, sort of ruined. Because the processing is so badly sort of, it was never standardized. So there used to be massive losses in the high frequency side of it. So your sound used to, sort of sound completely muffled and things like that. That was one major disaster that happened to this film also. One of the reasons, but we could attempt the sync and all. Those days, people have not spoken much about sync sound or anything, because that was the dubbing days, so-called dubbing days. No? So people never used to think about having sync sound and all that. But we attempted that thing because one reason was that the location was in Madhya Pradesh, and Madhya Pradesh, close to Rewa, in a village. That village was not kind of not in terms of sound, it was not that bad and all that. But at the same time, it had a little bit of this thing which was sort of adding to the sort of the soundscapes.
Tell me,
Yeah.
with the coming of digital compared to films, in films you had a lot of things, optical track, marriage print, all that
Yeah.
still, is it easier now with digital technology?
digital technology, it is absolutely easier. One is that, there is no loss at all happening, practically no loss at all. No, what has been, you keep it for years together, you keep it, whatever happens, from one form to the other, you do multiple transfer or whatever happens, there is no in between losses happening at all. So your everything is preserved as it is while you are on the location on the set. The same thing is going to be reproduced as it is, and in the sense, in the original form.
You
Yeah,
have done sound in feature films, you have done sound in documentaries and other
yeah,
programs.
that's right. Correct.
How is it very different from fiction to documentary when you do sound? How does
See,
it vary?
basically, yeah, basically there is no difference as such. But when you talk of fiction, what is the main thing is that, the consistency of the each and every, starting from the word go till the end of the film is, the full length feature in Indian conditions. It's mostly around 2 hours, definitely more than 1 hour and all that, so throughout the period of this thing, you have to have you have to have a consistent sound, especially, what in the sound instance, what your main interest is, the picking up the dialogues from the location as clearer as possible, and with least minimum noises around, unwanted noises, around. So that is possible. The once you get that, so what used to really happen was that, in a fiction, you have to have extensively, you have to be really really attentive enough from each and every aspect of, right from the first shot till the last shot, because everything is interconnected. So you are not only a sound recorder, so you are much closer to the director himself, so you are working, you are, while you are on the location, you are not thinking about this particular location, only one location and or one sequence. It's not that. You have to think about the film as a whole. So how this is going to finally take a shape, if your soundscape, how it is going to take a final shape. So that aspect, so because of that, you have to be so much careful about, to get the minute details of everything with the least minimum noises around. So that is quite a challenging job. At the end of the day, what used to happen, you are physically and mentally thoroughly tired. That's not been the case in a documentary, because documentary, generally the audience, the people are, any person for that matter, that you are telling a story, real life incident that is happening. Nobody really bothers about, whether this particular sound has got this noise or that noise, or whether it has got a consistent. Nobody is bothered about it, so you don't have to worry too much about it. So you have to basically only to get, pick up as much
But
sounds as possible.
at the same time, in documentaries, it is one man operation, unlike fiction where you have a
Yeah,
boomman, assistants, and in documentary, it is just one man
yeah, yeah,
operation of sound. It
correct.
also makes it difficult, I think.
It's physically it does make it a little difficult, but I have thoroughly, sort of enjoyed the documentary filmmaking. One reason is that I have no issues at all in handling everything all by myself. But that of course it's not possible at all with when you talk of fiction, because you have to have, you cannot carry the recording equipment on your shoulders and hold the microphone, hold the boom, and the multiple microphones that are required. You cannot operate single-handedly. You need the multiple people to control, not only to operate the booms and things like that, and the rest of the mics also. Not only that, you also need to have a group of people to control the entire environment, block the sets, sort of. You have to make a kind of a kind of a black kind of a set for that,
Tell me, what is the difference in sound designing, sound editing, sound mixing? How does it vary?
So basically, all these three elements of sound are entirely different. Actually, sound designing is one aspect. Sound editing is another aspect. Sound mixing is a third aspect. But we haven't really heard of sound designing and all that. This term has come, off late. Probably post 2000 or something, people started using more and more of this term of sound designing. Earlier, it used to be, like, a person who has done the re-recording or the mixing of the sound that, and you used to have different titles as, location recording and things like that. But the kind of designing as such was never there. But now it started because it defines sound designing is nothing but, basically what is happening is that you are the process of planning, then producing, then recording, and gathering all the materials, of the all the elements of sound. That is been called the designing of that. You have to organize everything. You discuss with the director and all that, how the final film should take place, and so gathering each and every information, I mean, related to sound, how much it should. So that is the designing part of it. And the sound editing part, that comes into the person who actually does the recording. I mean, the designer, not necessarily he has to personally do the recording himself or herself, whatever. You only have to plan things, and decide what all elements are required and all that. Plan properly. Okay, this is required. This is the effects are required. Music is required. The special effects are required. This is how you do it. So that planning, that is where the designing aspect of it, and the editing part is the person who does the dubbing, who does the recording, who does the Foley's, both on the set as well as off the set. Everything that are required. Who does the actual recording. So there ends his job. So that is the editing part of it. So that is the editing part. Then comes the final mixing part of it. Now the person who does the mixing, doesn't have to be not necessarily the designer, because a person who has specialized in that particular field is basically blending of all these sound elements that we have got, like the dialogues, the sound effects, the music, and in the Foleys, all the special specific sounds and everything. All these things will have to be sort of blended together to get the thing. And so that is the final aspect of the thing, which is that is called the sound mixing. So these three things are entirely different. But we never used to talk about the designing part and all that, because so now what really happens is, you don't a sound designer doesn't have to be a person who has to have the knowledge of sound. There is no doubt about it. But at the same time, not necessarily he should be a practicing sound engineer or anything of that sort. Not necessarily. A person who has got the understanding of the designing part of it, how all these sound elements should be created, can be a designer. But a sound editor, a person who understands all these elements but doesn't know how to do the recording, how to place a microphone and all that, he is not the he cannot be called a designer. He's the man who does the editing, who does the recording. Basically, he's a recordist. He does the recording. He edits all these elements. He individually records all these pieces together and give it. And there ends his job. And comes the final part. That person has to have the entire knowledge of everything, all these two elements. The designing part also, you should have the knowledge. At the same time, the recording part also, you should know how sound should be recorded, how it should be achieved from a location, how it can be, how the each and every the tonal qualities of everything should be, and how all these elements of sound should be blended. That means he has to have the thorough in and out knowledge of sound. Yeah.
Finally, tell me,
Yeah.
for students who want to
Hmm.
become a sound recordist, how do
Yeah.
they go about it? And what is a
Hmm.
career, what does a person, how does
Uh,
he take it up as a career? How does he do it? Where does he study? Where does he
yeah.
join? What is the options?
See, I would suggest that unless and until you have the real passion and you are really serious about it, about this, especially this aspect of filmmaking, sound sound recording and engineering, this part of it. Unless and until you are really serious about it, you don't have the passion, then you should not go for it. So basically, you have to have the passion. It is not, you cannot just take it as a sort of someone managed to sort of learn this technique and try to look for a for, 9 to 5 kind of a job and all that, easily you can be easily absorbed somewhere. That shouldn't be the attitude. The basic attitude should be there is no time limit, nothing. So you basically have to have the passion. Only those who have got the passion and the patience and the interest towards the subject should attempt to. Now, there are various schools. There are two institutions run by the central government of India, FTII, Film and Television Institute of India, Pune, and also Satyajit Ray Film and Television Institute of India, Calcutta. These two are there. Then you also have a film institute run by Tamil Nadu government, Chennai Film School. Then you have a film school in Bangalore, and you have a film school in Kerala, KR Narayan. This is recently started film school in Kerala, KR Narayan Film and Television Institute of India. Okay,
And
so
and
that is
what
there.
what options of
Yeah.
career, what options of job do they have?
Career options, basically that's what I was suggesting. These days, see, you have some of the sound studios, and then or you get into independent film productions and become independent recordists, and you get into normal. But where your what do you call your income and all this, there is no consistent income. You cannot expect probably a consistent income or something. You could become a big time sort of sound engineer, sound designer, or whatever. But there will also be probably a time that you got to wait for a longer period and all.
Like any freelance job. It's
It's,
like
it's
any
like any
freelance.
freelance job. So so unless and until you have the passion towards it, that's what I said. You don't look towards getting a job. Do this course and or go for an industry training or whatever. You come back and then you want a job somewhere, 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 kind of a job or something. That shouldn't be the basic idea. You should always
Is
look
there
for much more.
is there any
Yeah.
film you would like to name saying it had very good sound recording recently?
See, there was one film that this was Kannada film. I'm talking about Titi. Titi is one thing that it may not have the real kind of, but I quite enjoyed the kind of natural sounds that were picked up from that. I quite
That
enjoyed
was
that.
Sing Sound. Was that Sing Sound?
That was sing sound. That was all sing sound. And I do anticipate such things. I'm not really keen about something which is created back in the studio or something. That is more of a simulated sound effects, or so. But something that you create naturally and pick it up naturally and achieve that from the locations and all that. That is more of interesting than creating something back in the studio, and that's not the real. But it's okay. That's also.
Hmm.
But this is one film. This is quite some time
Yes.
back. But in off late, there are films, but I cannot immediately.
Yeah.
When you ask for, yeah,
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. We had a lovely conversation with you talking about sound. Not much is discussed about this. So it was very nice
yeah,
to hear how sound is such an important aspect of filmmaking Thank you so
Right,
much for
right.
being with us.
Yeah, thank you, and I'm quite happy that people are taking massive attention now. I think there's a
No, yes,
shift happening now. That I'm
yes.
quite happy with it.
Thank
There is
you.
a tremendous change. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
thank
you
you,
so much. And please
thank you,
do
Ajay.
follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you so much. Next week we'll come with maybe another aspect of filmmaking. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you, thanks a lot. Thank you.